What's going on, Packers fans? Welcome into Pack-A-Day Happy Hour. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. We are presented today by Luigi's Frozen Pizzas. Get your Luigi's Frozen Pizzas for the holiday season. They are okay stocking stuffers because you're going to need a freezer to do it, but just put them in the fridge, or the freezer, I should say, and then tell people that they've got Luigi's Pizzas in the freezers waiting for them, or just make the pizza too. That works. Leave them out for Santa. Do everything that you need to do to make these a holiday tradition, just like I have on Thanksgiving. You can find them at luigispizza.com and, of course, on social media at Luigi's Pizza. I'm doing pepperoni pizza for dinner. You better believe it. Cannot wait for that already. We've got a lot to jump into right away. I'm going to get to all of your amazing questions over the course of the next hour or so. Sorry, I was a couple minutes late, just a couple of technical difficulties I was working through, but we're here now. We have final designations for the Packers on their injury report. Questionable. Actually, let's do out for Green Bay. Savion Williams, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, all out. Marshawn Lloyd and Colin Oliver, who are still on the 21-day ramp-up period, are also out officially for this game. So Savion Williams, Marshawn Lloyd, LVN, Devontae Wyatt, Colin Oliver, all out for Green Bay. Questionable for Green Bay: Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Javon Bullard, Nate Hobbs, and Brenton Cox Jr. So Brenton Cox Jr., of the three that were activated and given the 21-day ramp-up window, Brenton Cox Jr. actually has a chance to play. They would need to make a transaction to make that happen. Of course, Devontae Wyatt can go on IR. That's not a huge issue, but they hopefully are utilizing that spot for Jaden Reed. If they want to activate Brenton Cox Jr. as well, then they'd have to make a corresponding transaction. Players to keep an eye on in that situation would probably be Malik Heath, would probably be one that would immediately come to mind. Donovan Jennings, I'm not sure how comfortable they'd feel going down to 8 offensive linemen on their actual 53. Doesn't affect game day. They don't keep more than 8 on their game day roster anyway. Christian Welch and Aaron Mosby, but both of them are core special teams players. But those would be the players that you'd probably be keeping an eye on there. I think a couple things. A, wide receiver, right? Do you get either Jaden Reed or Matthew Golden back this week? One of them would be nice. You don't maybe necessarily need both, but you would love to see Jaden Reed back. But even getting one of those, and if both are back, that's a huge jolt for the offense. The big one, though, to me is slot. We talked about that a little bit on today's show as well. Javon Bullard and Nate Hobbs, both questionable. Now, Hobbs practiced all week. That's probably a pretty good sign for him, but he's been, working back from this injury for a little while now. Bullard did not practice on consecutive days. That's usually a bad sign for him. I thought at minimum he'd be doubtful. So it's actually sort of a somewhat encouraging sign that he's questionable. But what happens if Bullard and Hobbs are both out for Green Bay? If either of them are in, if Bullard's in, he gets the slot. And that's probably that's no question about it. If Bullard's out and Hobbs is in, he probably gets the slot. If Bullard is out and Hobbs are out, you have some options. You could do Zane Anderson there. You could do Katana Ladapo there. You could put Keyshawn Nix in there and then put Kamal Haddon on the outside. You could put Bo Melton in the slot too. I think those are probably the different options that you would have. I think if it's me, on early downs, I'm probably going to try either Katana Ladapo or Zane Anderson. And then on obvious passing downs, I probably put Haddon in on the outside corner and then put Keyshawn in the slot. I think it just gives you a little bit better coverage that way. But they're going to have to answer those questions if, in fact, both are out. The big news for Chicago is Roma Dunze is out for Chicago. So that's the latest update on the injury report. No other noteworthy stuff there. I don't think, again, other than Savion Williams, really, they say he didn't have a setback, but, he went from playing to not playing. That's a pretty big deal. And then Marshawn Lloyd, Colin Oliver, unquestionably out. Brenton Cox will have a chance to play. Again, those are kind of the takeaways there. Gons USA, I know you've obviously been a member for a while, but thanks for signing back up. Appreciate you, my friend. All right, now let's get to all of your great questions. We'll start with Super Chats, and we'll get to as many other questions as we can get to. Blake Anderson signing to become a new member. Appreciate that as well. Wyatt Patrick 13. Or Wyatt P. Trick. Thank you for all your content. It's the best out there. I hope Marshawn Lloyd sees the field soon. Can't wait to see what our offense looks like with him in it. Yeah, so we've talked about this a little bit, Wyatt. Thank you for the super chat. He's obviously not active for this game. He's out for this game. If it is, I think it's going to be a couple weeks away. They're not going to rush him back. They're going to let him have that window since he really didn't get to practice in a while. The second thing is if in fact he does get past that initial wave, right, where he actually gets put on the active 53 and doesn't revert back to IR, he probably begins as the number 4 running back. I don't think they're going to deactivate either Chris Brooks or Emmanuel Wilson, And certainly they're not going to do anything with Josh Jacobs, right? So, and it's really, really difficult to keep 4 active running backs on the game day roster. Really, really difficult. So even if he does get back to the 53, there's a good chance that he starts as a healthy scratch, but he's a super talented dude. And if you get him the opportunity, I think he'd make the most of it. That's going to be a balancing act, but it really makes it difficult because Emmanuel Wilson's done nothing to get deactivated on game day so far. And Chris Brooks is almost a non-starter because he plays teams. And he also is a great blocking back, which you need. And Marshawn Lloyd is certainly not that. So it just becomes very difficult. I think the odds that Marshawn Lloyd has any sort of significant impact on this season are probably slim, or I guess maybe better said, it probably would be injury related, either something to Brooks, Wilson, or Jacobs, where Lloyd actually gets that opportunity to be in the top 3 in game day. But he's so talented that you never know. And if they give him that opportunity, he, I'm sure, would make the most of it. But he's got to get back healthy first. And again, that's not going to be this week based on the updated injury report. Dylan, thank you for the super chat. Different circumstances, but I'm hoping for an end of season boost from Marshawn Lloyd, similar to James Starks in 2010, with the same result, of course. Yeah, I think the one thing is a lot of the James Starks stuff was predicated on a Ryan Grant injury, right? So I'm really hoping that we don't see a Josh Jacobs injury that sort of predicates the need for Marshawn Lloyd a little bit more. There's probably nobody that is more excited to see Marshawn Lloyd on the field than I am. Again, what I've seen in training camp, what I've seen him do, I think he can be a stud. I really, truly believe that. But even with that, even with me being like Marshawn Lloyd guy 1A, I'm hesitant to say that I think he can make any sort of impact on this season where things stand right now. But man, I would love to be wrong. And I think just with Lloyd, you take it one day at a time, see what he's doing, and see if he can actually get active first. And then once he gets active and we actually see him on a game day roster, then that might be a little bit different. I might start getting those juices flowing and get a little bit excited. But for now, I'm kind of letting things just simmer a little bit and see how this plays out over the course of the next couple weeks. Packer Superfan, what does Matt's cold weather game plan look like? It's an interesting question. He's obviously done extremely well in December's in his career in Green Bay, which is a very good sign. I mean, I think if I'm Green Bay in this game, the Chicago's run defense is really bad. And their run game for Green Bay has looked a little bit better with Sean Ryan and Anthony Belton in there. I think both those guys still have work to do to get better. Although I thought this game this past week, as I talked about today, was probably Sean Ryan's best game on the season so far. If he can continue that, if Belton can continue to grow, Tom's playing good football. I'm still a little bit iffy on Rasheed Walker, but Aaron Banks is playing the best football of his short Green Bay career so far. This offensive line is starting to gel just a little bit. I'd probably come out in this game, and it's a really difficult thing because we all want to see all gas, no break. We all want to see super aggressive. But if I'm Matt, I want to see if I can run the ball early in this game. I really do. It's not to take it out of Jordan's hands. Quite the opposite. You know, he's going to have to cook. And when he gets those opportunities, I'm sure he will. But if you can run the football, take care of the football, and maybe even get some explosives out of the running game, to me, that's a huge opportunity for success. It's cold. It's December. It's going to be blistering cold in Green Bay on Sunday. So the more that you can, have that as an advantage where you're running the football, it's going to be an advantage. So that's probably where I start. I have no issue if you need, Jordan to step up and start throwing more because the run game's not working. So be it. And I'll get away from it if need, or I would get away with it from it if need be. But I'd probably start with the running game if I'm Matt. I also trust my defense a lot in this game. I think, they've been phenomenal at home, 13.5 basically points per game on the season so far. And again, this is going to be cold conditions. No Rome Odunze for Chicago. They got to stop the run. Those are the big things for me is watch the trenches early and watch the running games early. If Chicago's able to run the ball like they did against Philly, buckle in. It could be a long afternoon. It could be a very long afternoon. There's nothing more frustrating in football when you can't stop the opposing team's running game. Like you feel helpless. You feel absolutely helpless. Think it's been a while, but think back to that 49ers, in Matt's first year where the 49ers just ran all over Green Bay. Like they probably didn't need to throw a pass that entire game. That's not the situation that you want to be in. And Jeff Hafley won't let it get there by any means. Don't get me wrong, but watch the running game early for both teams. And then, if it does come down to passing, you feel better about Green Bay based on having Love over Caleb Williams at this point. But that's why you want to be able to still run the football and you want to really take Monungai and Swift away and make it so that Caleb Williams has to win with his arm in cold conditions without Rome Odunze. Box Boy member for 13 freaking months. Thanks so much, Box Boy. Are you working out with the amount of Luigi's you're having? Listen, there's always a balance, right? There's always a balance. But I know, I mean, the beautiful thing about Luigi's is, you don't need a ton of slices to get full. Like, they fill you up pretty well. They've got all those toppings on there. So you can do it in moderation, still have delicious Luigi's pizzas, and not have to go super crazy with it either. But I will say, I have been known from time to time to eat a pizza or two on my own, and it just is what it is. And then you deal with the repercussions of that later. But no, they're delicious, and they're certainly worth it. When is LVN going to start earning draft status? Well, it's really tough, Matthew, in the fact that it looked like he was really stepping up this year, and then he immediately got hurt, and that sucks to judge him. Green Bay is going to have to, make that fifth year option decision coming up. That's going to be an interesting one. My guess is that they unquestionably give him that fifth year option, but it's not going to be cheap. But I think if they gave it to Wyatt, they'll definitely give it to LVN. The answer here, Matthew, is that he probably never lives up to the draft expectations, right? It is what it is. But do I think he can still be a good player for this team? Absolutely. Do I want him back right now? Absolutely. Some of these things, they take a little bit more time than you want. Clearly, this is year 4, and year 3, right? And you're hoping for a little bit more by this point in time. But let's see what he looks like when he comes back. Hopefully, he can make a huge impact. He looks good prior to the injury, and if he can get back playing that way, or maybe even take a little bit more of a step, he's just going to be a really good player for Green Bay. And that's a good thing to have too. Really good players are good. Is it as good as maybe you were hoping when you took him 13th overall? Maybe not, but I'm still excited what he can do for this team moving forward. Stephen Anthony, thank you for the super chat. Cheers all. Driving up for the game from Chicago and stopping in Kenosha for some Luigi's Victory Pizza. Love that, Steve. If we could only have one questionable player on Sunday, who's your pick? Is it going to be Bullard? So I got Reed, Golden, Bullard, Hobbs, and Cox. Well, it's not going to be Hobbs or Cox. And it's not, I would obviously take Reed over Golden. So the question is, do I want Jaden Reed or Javon Bullard? That's a really good question. I'm going to sneeze 1 second. Whew, excuse me. It's a rare one. Probably in live shows, maybe only 2 or 3 sneezes all time. I think I'm a pretty, there's that one time where I was having like a sneezing attack though. I think all of my other sneezes may have come on one show, but, I think I take Reed. All right. I guess my answer to this would be, how many snaps do I get for Reed? If I would actually get like a 40, 50 helping of, snaps from Jaden Reed, I probably take him. If he's on like a snap limit of like 10, 15, 20 snaps, then I take Bullard. It's really close either way. And I certainly wouldn't shy away, or I wouldn't be upset with anybody that answered Bullard there. But I just think Jaden Reed's such a playmaker for this offense. So give me Reed if he would be able to play as much as I would need him to. But if there's any sort of snap count, I would take Bullard instead. Fred McFarley, member for 8 months. Pizza no longer exists. Your next tacos, my friend. Absolutely love taco. I actually probably eat more tacos than I probably eat anything. We have taco. In fact, we're probably we have taco meat in the fridge that we got to make. So it's either going to come tonight or tomorrow. So one night tonight, I think is going to be Luigi's, tomorrow tacos, but that might get switched. But either way, yeah, eat a ton of tacos. And we're talking real white boy tacos. Like, we're talking the most bastardization tacos you could ever imagine. We're going flour tortillas. Corn tortillas suck. I'm sorry. I know they're the authentic ones. I get it. I'm sorry. I can't do it. Flour tortillas, taco meat. I do like really spicy hot sauce though. So I at least get some credit back for that. So give me all the spicy hot sauce, lettuce, and then a lot of cheese. Of course, I'm from Wisconsin. Tons of cheese on that taco. And that's really it. So just flour tortilla, meat, lettuce, cheese, hot sauce. And it can be very spicy hot sauce. That's my go-to taco, and I eat a ton of them. So that'd be my next one up. So T-Bell, if you're listening, you want to do a sponsorship too, we'll get you in right after Luigi's, and we can do a pizza taco combo. Yoshi, Amon-Ra destroyed the Bears earlier this season. Really hope we get Reed back for that type of slot yak threat that they have to respect. This is an interesting one. I actually think Green Bay has a lot of advantages in this game. Maybe it's my famous last words, and maybe it comes back to haunt me, whatever. I feel actually very confident about this game for Green Bay. I actually think Vegas when I first look at 6.5 points, I'm curious if it's changed at all. It is still 6.5. When it first came out, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way Green Bay's at 6.5 points. But the more I've watched it, the more I've looked at the tape, the more I kind of look at these matchups. I think Green Bay's good here. I really do. And Matt's had Chicago's number. I know it's Ben Johnson era now. I don't think they're going to win back-to-back games in Lambeau. The one in Chicago will definitely be, I think, a little bit more scary going into Chicago. But this one, although we do own that facility as well, but this one I actually feel pretty good about. So that's how I'm feeling right now. All right, let's get back to our live questions here. William says, happy Friday, Andy. I will be there on Sunday. Cannot be more excited. Maybe I'm overconfident, but it just seems like we match up very well. What they do well, we also do, or we can't. We're kind of just talking about this. I actually feel very good about how Green Bay matches up in this game. Would you appreciate a more conservative? Yeah, we talked about this too. I kind of want to start conservative and then get aggressive if need be. So to me, I would kind of like to see them start to run the ball first. And then if it's just not going well, then let Love cook after that. Their pass rush is not good. That's the other thing too. I guess my big thing here, William, and maybe I'll course correct here a little bit. I'm not scared about running or throwing the ball in this game. So I want to see how Chicago's playing. Are they playing man? Are they playing zone? They've been bad in man coverage, although part of that's due to Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson being out, and they're both back now. But they've been bad in man coverage. Green Bay's good in man coverage. And I like the matchups that Chicago cannot get to the quarterback, and Green Bay, when Jordan's been protected, has been arguably the best quarterback in the league in those scenarios. So I'm not scared of Chicago's defense, but the bigger thing is you have to take care of the ball. Not to say that and maybe even it's more likely for a fumble than it is for a Jordan Love interception at this point in time, the way that he's taking care of the ball. But the big thing is take care of the ball. But how is Chicago playing you? Are they playing that extra guy in the box? If so, all right, we're going to throw the ball around. Are they playing too high? All right, we're going to see if we can run the ball. So I think Chicago kind of dictates a little bit of how they're playing defensively, and then where your best matchups are after that, which we know Matt's going to try to do pretty much no matter what. Todd, thank you so much for the question, Todd. Sounds like letting Jenkins go next year is likely. I would say almost a guarantee at this point. Always need more Pro Bowlers on the roster. Why not move him back to guard and cut elsewhere? Yeah, I think the first thing I would say about that is I just don't think they're going to want to pay him what he wants to pay. It didn't seem like Elton was ever super comfortable and happy this year, whether it be in Green Bay. It just kind of felt like the writing on the wall was on the wall for both sides. I expect Elton to be elsewhere. Whether or not they can get something in return, maybe it's a possibility, and we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But I expect Elton to be gone. The question you would have is, if you play him at guard, what's your plan for Anthony Belton? You probably need to move like Zach Tom inside if you're to center, if you're going to play Belton still and want to bring back Jenkins, because either Jenkins or Tom need to play center. Morgan's going to play left tackle. You would assume, maybe bring in some competition. Belton plays right tackle then, and Banks and Jenkins are your guard. And then again, Zach Tom probably has to be your center, or you end up in the same situation you were, and now Elton's got to play center again. I just don't see it. I think Belton and Banks are going to be your guards next year, so I don't think that guard spot's going to be available. I think Zach Tom's going to stay at right tackle. I think Jordan Morgan will get first opportunity at left tackle. And then honestly, right now, if I'm bringing back a center, Sean Ryan's going to cost less, and I think he might be playing it better. So I'd probably just bring back Sean Ryan before I pay $20+ million to Elton Jenkins next year. I just think the two people that really feel the writing are on the wall for are Romeo Doubs and Elton Jenkins. I'm struggling to see a situation where either are back, but we'll see. We'll see. You never say never in this league. Anything can always happen, but that's where I would lean right now. Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. I think the real question is, can we not kick the ball into the end zone on kickoffs? Well, hopefully the ball is, traveling a little less this week, because that ball's going to be cold and makes it a little bit easier maybe to get short of the end zone. But it's just insane. I don't understand that, of how, as an NFL kicker, back to back times, you can kick it 1 yard deep into the end zone. And obviously Bisaccia had talked about it yesterday, of saying that was not the plan, that, he cannot kick it in the end zone. You just can't give teams the ball at the 35. They have to earn it. I know people are saying, well, like the coverage has actually been, for the most part, fine when you give them the opportunity. And it's not like teams have got it past the 35 very often. I just think you have to make them earn that 35-yard line. And sometimes you get them at like the 23, 24. If you get a holding penalty, all of a sudden they're back at their own 15. And that can be like a 20-yard difference, 15, 10-yard difference. And if there's like 6 or 7 returns throughout the course of the game, like just think about this for a moment. If you get them around the 25-yard line instead of rather getting at the 35, so let's say there's 5 returns through the course of the game. That is 50 yards in difference. There's no difference if I told you Jordan Love would connect to Christian Watson for a 50-yard play. That's the same 50 yards that you get through 5 of those kick returns. It's massive. It's a 50-yard bomb that you're getting per day for free from the special teams. So yeah, I just think they've got to figure out a way to make sure, and maybe they need to practice Whalen on that a little bit more. I think there's interesting things that you could do. I don't know if anyone else on the team has any kicking ability. The safety, Justin Reed, I know was somebody that they practiced with, of having him be able to kick off and make it because it's not as far. And so his kicks don't go in the end zone. And you have a safety on the field rather than the kicker to cover kicks as well. So I don't know what the solution is, but man, Brandon McManus, buddy, we've got to make sure that thing doesn't reach the end zone. The man 5705. Does it make sense to line up Micah more on the strong side to keep Caleb from running to his right? That's where Micah lines up anyway. Micah lines up at left defensive end. So that's where Caleb's strong side, where his right side would be. The strong side is more based on formation of where your tight end is going, where the stronger side of the formation is. So strong side can be left or right. But in this case, if you're talking about Caleb Williams' right side, where you don't want him to be able to escape to the right, then you would want to make sure that you're putting Mike over there, which is his natural position anyway. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot. But the interesting aspect of this is Darnell Wright is one of the best young tackles in all of football. He's a good player. Their left tackle, not as good. Do you want to get Micah on the other side so that he gets the more advantageous matchup, and then have Rashawn Gary kind of set the edge, or Enagbare kind of set the edge, make sure that there's no escape, and maybe Micah can kind of swing around from the other side and chase him down from behind? That's a possibility too. My guess is you'll see him used in multiple ways per usual. Some of the mostly on the left, a little bit on the right, and then probably a little bit standing up and doing some unique things as well. I talked about it with Penei Sewell. Sometimes, and we didn't see him much against Sewell. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong about Micah? Because he won both times against. Well, he won twice against Decker. Now I'm drawing. He lines up on the left, right? And Gary's on the right. Why am I drawing a blank on this? Micah Parsons so far this year. Oh, it's been really balanced. It's more balanced than I thought it was. So what, 2, 3, 12, 330 snaps on the right. 197 and so it's about 100 more on the right than it is the left. It's not as much as I would have thought though. So his primary is actually, I guess the primary is right defensive end. I thought it was more left, but I guess I'm wrong in that I never obviously charted it myself for whether he plays more left or right, but it's much more evenly split than I thought. But again, either way, I expect him to be, moved around quite a bit, which is obviously what he's done so far this season to a pretty large extent. So either way, again, yeah, I think you use him both on the left side and the right. If you can either chase him down, set the edge on the other side, or have him go against Darnell Wright and make sure that he can't escape to the right. That's a possibility as well. But what I talked about with Penei Sewell is that, sometimes when you get matched up with one of the premier offensive tackles, the team feels like, hey, I can block. We can block one-on-one. We've got Penei Sewell. And I don't know if Chicago's quite going to get there with Darnell Wright, but if they feel like, hey, we really like Darnell Wright, we think he's really good, he can match up with Micah. All right, cool. Bring it on. Any one-on-one is amazing for Micah Parsons, regardless of what offensive. We saw it with Myles Garrett last week. Myles Garrett was going against Trent Williams, and San Francisco said on a couple occasions, hey, we're going to allow Trent to go one-on-one because we trust Trent Williams is the best left tackle in football. And Myles Garrett had that beautiful sack against Trent Williams against the one-on-one where Garrett got inside on that ridiculous move. Sometimes you can almost benefit by having that good offensive tackle because they get a little overconfident in those situations. And maybe Micah can take advantage of that. All right. Z Sunrise. I've got a little bit of a situation. I have a parlay. Oh boy. With an early payout, and I have Aaron Rodgers for 2 touchdowns and Jordan Love for 3 touchdowns. If both happen, it's 3,200. I know this team is able to put up points and should, but it's a division game, and I fear for it. And 3 touchdowns isn't just a gimme. Let's say Aaron Rodgers hits that, and the early payout is whatever new amount. Would you take it or risk it? I'd probably take it. So always do the opposite of what I say is what I would tell you. But in Green Bay, with it being super cold, and I would probably stay away from the Jordan Love 3 touchdowns. But hey, scared money don't make money is what Matt LaFleur would say, right? So I have no advice for you, Sunrise, but I wish you luck either way. And you often think about how lucky I am to have chosen to be a Packers fan 16 years ago, not because they are the best team in football, but because the fandom brought me to your channel, which has to be one of the absolute best team-specific sports channels in existence. Proud to be a top 2% viewer this year. Thanks for everything. Cora, that is unbelievably kind of you. I tried expressing this on today's show of just how thankful I am. Words don't do it justice, and I probably didn't even do it as much justice as I would have liked to see the Spotify Wraps and the YouTube algorithm, or the YouTube numbers come in, and people posting those online, and seeing people and how many minutes they watched and how many shows they watched and what this means to people on a daily basis. It's a super cool thing. And I'm really proud of what we do here at Pack-A-Day, and I take what I do not for granted. I have great pride in the work that I do and that we do as a team. And I'm also very blessed and lucky to get to do what I do on a daily basis. But it really is cool and remarkable to see some of those numbers come streaming in. And Corey, I cannot thank you enough for the support. I cannot thank you enough for the kind words. And that just goes for everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to cover this team every single day. It's the joy of my life, other than my 2 kids. My 2 kids, of course, do come first. But after that, from like a work standpoint, there's not anything I'd rather be doing. And to just get to, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, effort, and energy. I think last night's episode, I got recorded around 2 a.m. Like there's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, but can't imagine doing anything different. And I'm glad that it is there for people when they need it. And I'm glad that people get enjoyment out of it. And I know that I do every single day talking to you guys. So thank you so much for an unbelievable year. We had record numbers again this year, both on the YouTube channel and on our audio podcasts. So appreciate everything. And Cora, again, thank you for the kind words. Dream vision for Sunday. Packers beat the Bears. They throw on the video board the clip of Ben Johnson, Matt LaFleur comment, and the Bears still stuck. The Sox starts playing. I don't see that happening, Ethan, but that would be a pretty cool scene for sure. Peter talked about on his show. What show is that, Ethan? We don't talk about that shit. No, I'm just kidding. How Devontae Wyatt injury is not that significant because he was more a cherry on top rather than the engine. Do you agree with him on that? I came into this week talking about a very similar thing of like, I'm not super worried about Devontae being out. They can manage that injury. It's not to the level of like a Tucker Kraft. I got through the tape this week and I didn't love how Colby Wooden and Warren Brinson played in that game. Carl Brooks is coming back from injury, although he's good to go, not questionable on the injury report this year. But I didn't have a great feel about the defensive tackles. And what I really fear is the depth at defensive tackle. Like Colby Wooden's now your 1A defensive tackle. This is a guy that we thought going into the training camp might be a cut candidate. Now he's the number 1 defensive tackle. Carl Brooks is probably your 2. Warren Brinson, a 6th-round pick, is your 3. And Nasir Stackhouse, an undrafted free agent, is your 4. Do I think that they can get by with that? I do, but it does change things. I would love if they had LVN back to kick him in some of those obvious passing downs. I think that would be huge, but they don't. It ends up, I think, being more of a wash. Meaning, I think Green Bay can hang. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they're going to get completely blown out of the water at defensive tackle, but it definitely doesn't have the same oomph that it once did when Devontae was in there and playing really well. There's no question he was their best defensive tackle. So it's a bummer. It sucks. I think they can survive it, but I'll say this, Ethan. This week is going to tell you everything. The Bears' interior offensive line is really freaking good. If Green Bay can hang against this Bears offensive front, they're going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine from here on out, assuming there's no more injuries. But if Chicago really takes advantage of it, look for other teams to use that as a blueprint. And Green Bay is going to have to work even extra hard to maybe plug some of those gaps and maybe look elsewhere to see if there's somehow, some way they can get some sort of upgrade at that defensive tackle position. Who's your closest friend in the beat that you cover football with? Well, again, I'm not in the beat. So I always, want to clarify that first. And then if it depends on how you're defining the beat. The closest that I am to, of anybody in the Packer sphere, the kind of interesting thing is I'm not like insanely close with anybody, but obviously, getting to talk to Nagler and Justice every single week. When I'm usually at training camp, and Paul Brettel too, when I'm usually at training camp and we're all like everyone's there covering it, the people that I'm usually with the most are Paul Brettel and Marcus Eversole. And then the other person that I've actually, kind of hung out quite a bit with that is on the beat is Wes Hodkovitz. Him and I are both really into wrestling. So we've watched like a lot of AEW pay-per-views. We've gone to AEW shows together and things like that, some WWE shows together. So those are probably the ones. I can't say enough how much respect and admiration I have for Pete Doherty. He and I will chat from time to time, and I really value and appreciate those conversations. He's incredible. I'm obviously very close with Mike Wall, getting to talk to him every week. And it's an interesting question, but there's not anybody like my group of best friends or things like that aren't anyone necessarily that's like on the beat or anything like that. But I am definitely close with a lot of people that cover the Packers in some capacity. Blake Anderson, thank you for becoming a new member. Appreciate that. May have gone over that earlier. If so, apologize for double talking about that one, but either way, thank you. What's the Ashley? Thank you so much for the question, Ashley. What is that? Why is there a garbage can on your picture, Ashley? You dropped your crown, King. I don't know who that's in regards to. Hopefully it's not me. What's the third down plan versus Caleb and Chicago? Ashley, I'm interested as well. I really am. All right, let's see. What would I do? Third down. Let's say it's a 3rd and 10. It's really interesting because my biggest fear is him getting out of the pocket and creating ad-lib plays. I think I'm going to play a lot of zone because I definitely want to keep eyes on Caleb. I'm going to probably rush with 4. And if it's a 3rd and long situation, I'm probably going to play a lot of 4-man, like almost defensive ends. So you might see me do like Gary and Micah on the outsides with like Enagbare and Baron Sorrell on the inside. Meaning like I want speed, or maybe you're lining up Micah Parsons standing up inside and maybe, I don't know, maybe Baron Sorrell is kind of in that 3 technique sort of look. And then maybe you've got Gary and Enagbare on the outsides. I want speed on the field. I want good contain. And like, I might take one of those players and like, we might do like a twist or a stunt. And then after I do my initial movement, the guy that kind of is picking the center, whoever it ends up it is that they're picking, I might kind of drop him more in like a spiral and have him like make sure like Enagbare, I think would be really good at that, to kind of like knock over a center, try to pick somebody to get Micah clean inside. And then as soon as Mike is inside, now I'm going to roll to Caleb's right, and my left, his right, to make sure that, he can't escape to the outside. Hopefully I'm getting Micah a runway to the center, Rashawn and, in that case, Sorrell are kind of like setting the edge. And then Enagbare is kind of like almost a pseudo spy going to the right side to make sure he can't escape to his right. Just some things like that. I think the other thing would be, I would, especially if Bullard's available, but if not, I think you could do it with other players as well. But I kind of want to bring a lot of slot pressure off of his right side from Javon Bullard as well. I would probably do some of that and maybe even line up Mike on the opposite side and drop him into coverage. And then, so I'm going to overload on one side and make him roll to the left. And now you're making him roll to the left where you have more coverage with Micah dropping into space. Just think there's a lot of different things that you could do to really kind of throw him off. But this might be a little bit of a kitchen sink game for Jeff Hafley. Hopefully it doesn't have to be. Maybe they can just get home with 4, cover with 7, and it's as simple as that. But I'd like to see him try a couple different unique things. And I think there's some things that could really work well against Caleb. Jonathan, thank you for the super chat. I think I saw a stat that said Chicago's defense is 30th if you take away turnovers. Correct? Wendell Fajeda was the one who we talked about it here on the show, but he was the one I think that tweeted that out. Toyotathon, Jordan Love doesn't throw too many picks. Any Jordan Love at this point doesn't throw too many picks, knock on wood. It's the key to the game. Don't turn the ball over. Don't give Chicago those extra opportunities, and you're going to be in a good spot. They can take advantage of this Bears defense. They really can. Bears defense is going to be fired up. They know that they've had their deficiencies, but I trust Green Bay's offense. I really do. And Green Bay's defense has been phenomenal at home. I think there's a lot of avenues for Green Bay to win this game, which has me maybe a little bit more confident than I generally like to be going into games. If you listen to Peter B, the Packers have no flaws. I think Ralph, I think Peter will be critical at certain points of certain things. I don't think that's totally true, but either way, Peter does a really good job covering the team. No question about it. Kipperoni, wish it was going to be warmer, so we got a higher probability to see Love sling it around more, but sure hope Jacobs gets at least 2 touchdowns and 100 yards. Listen, Kipperoni, this is why you draft a quarterback with arm strength, is that when it gets cold and maybe there's some conditions, you've got a quarterback that can still throw it around. Now, Chicago does too. He's got the arm talent and the ability to whip it through the wind also, but these quarterbacks can sling it. If Matt LaFleur or Ben Johnson want to throw the ball, these 2 quarterbacks are going to be able to find ways to throw the ball. So I'm not super concerned about that, but just be balanced, get Josh Jacobs going. And when Jordan needs to cook, I have every faith in the world that he'll still be able to cook. All right. Celestial Prophet 2013. I hope we keep, he's not going anywhere. I would be stunned if they cut Chris Brooks for any reason. I can't see that happening. And then he's a restricted free agent in the off season, and that gets interesting because I don't think they're gonna give him an offer on that, so he becomes an unrestricted free agent. But I think they'll bring him back very similar to what they did with John Fitzpatrick this offseason, where maybe Fitzpatrick or maybe Brooks tests the market like Fitzpatrick did for a little bit, but ultimately they bring him back on like a 1 or 2 year deal and give him some signing bonus money. Ends up back in Green Bay, but he's not going anywhere this year. I fear weather affects Green Bay more. Ralph, thank you again for the super chat. There's probably some truth to that, only because the Bears are so good at running the football right now. If Green Bay can stop their running attack, then I think it's still advantage Green Bay. But I do think they're going to have to show that they can stop the Bears rushing attack. If conditions become a huge thing, to me, the biggest advantage that Chicago has is their running game is better than Green Bay's running game. So if this comes down to the Bears running game versus the Packers running game, then yeah, I don't feel quite as confident. But Green Bay's been good against the run, and hopefully they can continue that this week, certainly with getting Quay Walker back as well. But that, again, the interior of the defensive line is going to be really asked to do a lot of heavy lifting against that Bears interior. That's the one thing that gives me hesitation in this game. If it weren't for that, I already feel good about this game, but I'd feel really, really good if it weren't for the Bears' very strong interior, their offensive line against the Packers' interior defensive line that is getting just a little bit beat up at the moment. All right, let's get our sleeper picks in for this week. Huge game, Packers, Bears, Sunday, 3:25, the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. Here's what I got. Simple. Really, really simple. I know it's cold. I know it's conditions, but 212.5 for passing yards still feels low for Jordan Love. I'm going more than 212.5 passing yards for Jordan Love, and DJ Moore, more than 26.5 receiving yards. No Roma Dunze. DJ Moore's had some success against Green Bay in the past. That's not many yards. I like that one a lot. So Jordan Love, more than 212.5, and DJ Moore, more than 26.5. Best part is you don't have to listen to me. You can make your own picks, get them in over at Sleeper, and 100% match up to $100 utilizing code Packaday. Again, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. Terms and conditions apply. Check Sleeper for details. They're available in over 25 states nationwide. So regardless of where you are, you've got over a 50% chance that it's available to you. And it is available in Wisconsin if, like me, you are in Wisconsin. Get after it. What are you waiting for? All right, back to our questions. Thank you guys again for being here. Danuke 420, which I'm sure is just a random number selection. Andy, not sure if you got to my hot take. I got a call from my boss. The hot take I saw was trade LVN, Gary, and a pick for Miles or Max. Thoughts about pairing one of those guys with Micah? Well, Danuke 420. It's not going to happen. Myles Garrett would take a lot more than that. Myles Garrett's going to go, if he gets traded this offseason, I think it will be 3 first-round picks at minimum. Green Bay does not have that. Packers placed Devontae Wyatt officially on injured reserve. They did not activate anybody, but that opens up a spot for an activation on Saturday. And you would hope, fingers crossed, that that's for Jaden Reed. But again, it could be for Bretton Cox too. But it does open up that roster spot for somebody. My guess would be Jaden Reed. The hope would be Jaden Reed as well. But Miles is going to go for 3 firsts, something like that. It's going to show that A, Green Bay got a steal for Micah, and B, again, Miles, the way he's playing is just a little bit more, even just a little bit better. But he's older too. But either way, I think he gets like 3 firsts if Miles gets traded. Green Bay doesn't have that. Plus, as soon as you trade for Miles, he's going to take the Micah. He's going to get more than Micah probably got paid, and Green Bay can't do that. There's no way to afford it. Could you do LVN, Gary, and a pick for, I mean, LVN and a pick for Max Crosby, the Raiders do in a second. Like if it's like a second, like if they want to do LVN in a second round pick, and then you could probably trade Gary elsewhere to save the money and get like a 6th round pick in return, something like that, 5th round pick, 4th round pick. And so you're probably looking at trading like Gary. It would be like almost like Gary, LVN, and like a 3rd for like Max and a 4th, something like that, where you would probably be able to get done. There's just no chance Green Bay does it. You don't usually trade up in age. Max was not as dominant as he was in years prior. And I just don't, again, he would want a new contract then as well, or at least, maybe he did. And I think he did, right? I have to look at it, but I think he did get his contract. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, even the base salaries, he'd get more than 30 million. It's just not feasible from a salary cap standpoint. So it's a fun fantasy conversation, but I think there's a good chance Gary's gone, and you're probably looking at LVN and, Micah as your starting 2 defensive ends next year. But that Gary conversation is a very interesting one as well. Menace 7125. Mold enough to remember playing at Lambeau in December under 32 degrees was metaphorically, of course, a death sentence for an opposing team. I still blame Mike Vick for bucking that trend. I was at that game. It was one of the less fun games I've ever been to in my lifetime, and I don't wish it upon anybody. And yes, that seemed to sort of change the idea of playing December football or January football in Lambeau Field. Because after then, it's been kind of anyone's ball game. But yeah, prior to that, I think they were undefeated prior to that game. All right. Rick Harris. Could we see some 3-4 due to depth? They've been playing 3-4. And Chicago has struggled against 5-man fronts. So you're going to see 3-4 in this game. You're going to see Wyatt as kind of your nose tackle would be my guess. Maybe they use Stackhouse there. Sorry, I meant Wooden. But maybe they use a little Stackhouse there. But you're going to see those guys probably 3 along the defensive front. It's interesting because it doesn't necessarily help your depth, because you probably want guys like Brinson, Wooden, and Stackhouse, or Brinson, Wooden, and Brooks, or it's some form of those 3 all out there all at once in your 3-4. But you could put Gary inside as well. You could do some stuff like that. But yes, then I think you'll put 2 outside linebackers, in this case, almost working as defensive ends on the line. Chicago has not been great against 5-man fronts with that zone blocking scheme. So yes, you were going to see, now whether it's like a 3-4 or whether you want to call it like a 5-2-4, you could kind of debate it one way or the other, but you'll see 5-man fronts from Green Bay in this game a lot. And Green Bay gets there in a variety of different ways too. Sometimes they'll play like a 3-4 with basically, again, a 5-man front, 2 linebackers. You'll also see at times them starting a 4-3 and then walk up a linebacker like Tyron Hopper or somebody like that, or Edgerrin Cooper to the line. And now it acts as a 5-man front, and you still have those 2 linebackers. So look for 5-man fronts with 2 linebackers. They can get there in a lot of ways. Again, almost like a 5-2-4, but it'll either be out of a 3-4 look and it's just kind of a natural look, or it'll be out of a 4-3 and they walk a linebacker up. Look for both of those this week. Jose, thanks for being here, Jose. How much of a benefit is it for the Pack to be playing Ben Johnson after playing sort of a shell of his old offense versus the Lions? I don't think it matters all that much. There's some nuance and carryover there. I'm sure that's maybe a little bit beneficial, but Ben is almost a little bit even different in Chicago than he was in Detroit. And Detroit's a little bit different without Ben too. Again, some carryover, some nice little things that I'm sure you can kind of take from one week to the next. But for the most part, you're preparing for this game like normal, like it's against any team with no advanced preparation. It does make for an interesting battle in 2 weeks when you're facing the same team for both of these teams just 2 weeks prior. You're getting almost like that extra level of emphasis. But Yeah. Other than that, I don't think there's a ton of advantage there, but it's a good question, Jose. Let's see. Most hated Chicagoan. Good to see you. Bring all the hate to Chicago this week, my friend. 2 days to go, Andy, and we made it to the weekend. On another note, I'm about to give up on the Bulls if they really declined Giannis, saying we want to build around our core. Listen, the Bulls are in a rough shape, but so are the Bucks. Not a great time for either organization. Let's just put it that way. There's some signs of hope for you guys at the beginning of the season. Buzelis looked really good at the beginning of the season. He slowed down a little bit, and it just looks like the Bulls are in their usual kind of no man's land where they're going to probably fight for a play-in spot, and it's not going to be anything better than that. But I don't know if that report about Giannis was true or not. But listen, there's going to be a lot of bidders for Giannis if it ends up coming to fruition. But we'll see what the Bucks can do without Giannis these next 3 to 4 weeks. And if it goes as bad as I think it will, you're probably going to see Giannis gone before the trade deadline would be my guess. And you said it in chat with Carmen, but I'll put it in another way. I know Green Bay can win defensively without causing turnovers. That's an area where Green Bay has grown from since last season. What I really want to see, Ben, is this start to switch and Chicago come back to life a little bit from a turnover standpoint, and Green Bay pick up where they kind of left off last year from a turnover standpoint. Green Bay all of a sudden starts getting turnovers at the rate that Chicago has been, and Chicago's dry up. This game's over, but Green Bay can go on a really significant run if they all of a sudden start generating a lot of turnovers again. But yes, to your point, they can win without them. Can Chicago actually do the same? I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Would love to hear my take on the state of college football. I really don't like any of it. The only thing that's good to me for is scouting players for the NFL. I don't like, well, I hate, first of all, that you get to the end of the season and players are sitting out games because they're getting ready for the NFL. And I'm not even blaming the players for that. I get it. You're about to get a once in a lifetime opportunity. I understand it. You don't want to risk that with an injury, but you now have your end of your season counterfeit because some of the best players aren't even playing. You now have coaches that are leaving at the beginning of December when you're a playoff team, going to a different team. How would the NCAA allows that to happen at that point where there's not some sort of moratorium on like, hey, no new coaches can be hired until, the college football playoff is over, is absolutely beyond me. It's insane. I also think, and that there's nothing really that college football can necessarily do about this, but I just got to the point too, where it's like, I don't know how many, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, I don't know. Is there anyone even else? I get that sometimes you get a Notre Dame or a Florida State or a, some other team, but it's like 3 or 4 teams every single year for the most part. Texas may be included in that from time to time as well, but it's just the same 3 or 4 teams kind of recycling through that have a chance to win the national championship. I really hate, I enjoy the transfer portal, but you have to contain it. I hate that the transfer portal is like a constant thing and you have guys leaving and incoming like all throughout. I hate that commitments don't mean anything, that you have a player committed and then like a week later, it's like, I'll be decommitted. Or it's like, oh, you got to the signing day and then like, oh, these 3 players that you had are now going to other teams. Like I honestly there's nothing that I really enjoy about it. I don't enjoy any of it. The one thing I will say that they did fix that for me was a complete, like those games were going like 5 hours for a while. They did change up the pace of play a little bit, which I do appreciate a little bit more. I'll love having like a bowl game on or a playoff game on in the background as I'm doing some stuff, but I have really no interest in tuning in to a college football game at all. And I love football. Again, if it's on or if there's a good game or something cool, I can find ways to enjoy it, but there's a lot of other things I'd probably rather do than watch. It just doesn't feel like there's any real weight to it. And then the other thing too is you'll get these national champions, and it hasn't, I don't think, happened as of late, but you get these national champions, and then it's like there's all these scandals around them, and then the coach has to leave, and you end up with all that stuff as well. Just all of it. Just not a fan of the entire brand. I don't know how better I can say it. Just don't know of all of it what I actually like about it, to be honest. And it's just a worse brand of football than the NFL. And I'm covering the NFL constantly anyway, so I don't feel like I need college football in my life, if I'm being honest. That's a long-winded answer, though. I'm sorry for going off on a tangent. I think the key to this game is fundamentals. Stay in your lane, wrap up, make the picture muddy for Caleb. This feels like one big game, or one where big game hunting could get you beat. Yeah, I mean, I think Green Bay's played that style of football all year long, so I don't have an issue. I agree with you, JRS, that I think that's a good plan of attack for Green Bay in this game, and I think they'll have a very similar approach to that because they basically have all year long. Also trust Love and Weather to operate better than Williams, even though, yes, Williams played in this stuff last year. I think that's fair. I don't think there's an issue with saying that. When do the Packers use Ray Nitschke Field versus Clark Hinkle Field for practices? The ones with the stands is primarily used in training camp. The ones on the opposite side is primarily used in season. Kind of as simple as that. There's some nuance there, but for the most part, stands, training camp, non-stands in season. Per the Athletic Football Show, Bears don't run well against five-man fronts. Yeah, we just talked about that. Packers tend to walk linebacker down in base. We talked about that too. Got to use a bear front to beat the Bears. Sorry, not sorry. Well, that's well said, John. I'll give you that. I had a couple more super chats come in here. Noah Dunze, cold weather, stack that box, Safley. They could, but the other thing is, Ralph, is they haven't needed to. They haven't needed to stack the box. Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney, especially Evan Williams, though, is so great at coming down from depth and plugging the gaps that you can almost play two-man and don't really need to do anything different. So, yeah, they can move to that if they need to, but for the time being, they may not need to because Evan Williams is so damn good at playing from depth. Have you seen this Matthew Golden slander by Bear fans lately? I've seen just some of it in general. People could not understand my sarcastic tweet from the other day either, by the way, somehow. Most people did. But man, there are things that happen on social media, like some responses that I get where I legitimately wonder, I'm not trying to be a dick, I promise. I legitimately wonder sometimes how like people make it through a day. Like how, like when something is so obvious, like in its sarcasm or like in what you're pointing to. So if you're unfamiliar, see if I can find this really quick. Somebody posted, it was the Poly Market Football. So they're just looking for, engagement, and I gave it to them, unfortunately. But they tweeted, is it too early to label Matthew Golden a bust? And I quote tweeted it and I said, he's absolutely 1 billion% a huge bust. And then in parentheses, I put, now sell me all of your Matthew Golden stock for really cheap and don't ask why. And people took it that I was legitimately calling Matthew Golden a big bust. And again, I don't know how you could read that. Like, what would be the point of saying, now sell me all of your Matthew Golden stock for really cheap and don't ask why, if I was clearly calling Matthew Golden a bust? It's just the reading comprehension and I don't know how some people make it through a general day and not being able to understand like very basic reading and sarcasm. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. But yes, Matthew Golden, I say this very confidently, Matthew Golden's going to be just fine. He's going to be a very good NFL wide receiver. And he will, I still think at some point this year, have a very big game for Green Bay. Maybe he's waiting for the playoffs, but he's going to be a very important piece for this team moving forward. And I'm very much looking forward to him getting back on Green Bay healthy. And I'm super excited what he's going to do long-term for this team. Super, super talented. Green Bay knows exactly what they have. There's a pecking order, and there's a bunch of wide receivers that have played a ton of snaps with Jordan when it comes to Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and obviously Wicks and Christian Watson and all those guys. Like they have a lot of banked up reps, and Matt knows exactly what those guys are going to go out and do because they're in year 3 or 4 with the team. And so, yeah, those guys are going to get more reps and they're going to get more opportunities from Jordan because there's a more familiarity there. I guarantee you, again, even as this season goes on, if he gets healthy and going into future seasons, eventually that's going to be Golden. And Golden's going to be getting all the snaps. And there's going to be some new receiver. And you're saying, why are they throwing to Golden all the time? Why aren't they throwing to the new guy? It's like, well, Golden has the banked up reps. We get all excited about the shiny new toy. And a lot of times the shiny new toy is still just, it's exciting, but, sometimes you're not familiar with the controllers quite as much as you are with all the toys that you already own. And it takes a little bit more time to ramp it up and get more comfortable with it. And that's exactly what's going to happen with Golden. He's going to be more than fine. Shame we never saw Shepard return a punt. Maybe he would have been awesome, and then we'd have a punt returner probably, but not. Yeah, I mean, I kind of expected that going into that game just because that's a huge game last week against Detroit and on the road. Are you going to put a rookie undrafted free agent guy back there to return punts when everything just feels so magnified and how important it is? I didn't think they were ever going to do it. They didn't. I thought it was the right call to put Dobbs back there. He's been doing a good job of just at least fielding the punt, even if he does take a 10-second pause after catching it sometimes. But I don't think it would have changed the calculus of things all that much. And if anything, it might have made me just a little bit more nervous putting somebody back there that all of a sudden you're bringing him up for a week and he's going to be your primary punter. That's a big spot to be in for a guy that hasn't even really had an impact or played a snap on the team. I kind of would have trusted not sure thing, but the more veteran presence there in Romeo Dobbs. What will be the plan for the slot if Bullard and Hobbs are both out? Do we trust Oladapo in coverage? Again, we talked about this earlier, John. I don't know if you're here at the beginning, but actually you asked this question before I even came on. But yeah, we went over this. I think there's a few different ways that it could go, but if it's me, I'd probably play Oladapo or Zane Anderson on early downs and then kick Nixon inside and then put Haddon on the outside in obvious passing downs. Ooh, my favorite all-time Packers Bears memory. Whew. I mean, I think it has to be the NFC Championship game. The Robert Brooks, what was it, 99-yard touchdown's a cool one. Was it the game before in like week 17 where they had to have the win where Rodgers, or maybe it was early in that game, right? In the NFC Championship where Rodgers did the bootleg for the touchdown. That's a cool memory. Obviously the Raji pick six. There's the play on it's either a 4th and 1. Is it a 4th and 1 or a 3rd and 1? I think it was in the Cutler era where Rodgers hits Jennings for like a 50-yard touchdown late in a game that was a regular season game. Obviously, Rodgers to Cobb part 2. Man, there's a lot of really good Packers memories. All right, I'm going to say Rodgers to Cobb part 2, the one where he looked like he was going to be out with the ACL injury and then came back in that game and threw that play to Cobb. That just hit different for some reason. I think that's probably number 1 on my list, but man, if you went Raji pick 6, if you went Rodgers to Cobb 1, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot of really important plays too in the rivalry's history, but I think Rodgers to Cobb 2 just hits a little bit differently for me. That was such an unbelievable moment in that game where they were down by so much, and then Rodgers comes back at halftime, and it's just a really, really cool game. All right. Got a few more minutes here. We'll try to get to as many questions as I can. I'm going to go to the bottom here, just make sure and see if there's anything else. 2018 Randall Cobb, Perk Rodgers game for sure. An underrated one, by the way, is the Adrian Amos pick in the end zone. His first game, it was his first game as a Packer, right? Going against his former team. Or maybe was it I think it was his rookie year, not rookie year, but his first year in Green Bay. And he gets the pick in the end zone. That's an underrated one. I Still Own You is a very good one. So yeah, that's all of them. All of them are right there. The throw to Geronimo is another really good one as well. Yeah, Rodgers to Allison. Yeah, 5 touchdowns. Yeah, these are great. These are really great. You guys are bringing up a lot of good ones. Packers just claimed a defensive tackle off waivers, Quentin Bohanna, according to Jason Hirschhorn. Interesting. Let's see if he was a former Titan, if I remember correctly. I'm going to look that up in a second too. .6'4", 355. Bills claim Darnell Savage as well. All right, that's an interesting move. that makes things very interesting for some potential transactions on Saturday for sure. So yeah, that is their Howard Green version 2.0. Let's look up Bohanna really quick. Where did this go? All right, was I right with I was right that he was with the Titans, but he was not there for long. So I don't know. I think I get credit. He was a Cowboy, Lion, Titan, and then Seahawk, 2024 to 2025. So yeah, they waived him, and now he's apparently a Green Bay Packer. See if what his PFF grades have been here. He is. Oh, they don't have his age. That's a bummer. Not great PFF grades. He only played 32 snaps this year for Seattle, 54.0 grade, only one pressure. Only played 6 snaps in 2024, 65.9 grade, no pressure. Yeah. So he's 637 snaps in his career, struggled in 21 and 22 as a Cowboy, at least per PFF. But yeah, 6'4", 360 definitely adds some beef to that room for sure. I'm very interested to see what the corresponding move. Do they keep 6? Is Nasir at risk here? Like, can they keep 6 defensive tackles? That's an interesting conversation as well. I can't imagine. Obviously, Wooden's not at risk. Brooks, I can't imagine is at risk. And obviously, I would not think that Brinson is at risk either. That's interesting. That definitely gives them a little bit more bulk inside. That's for sure. They got 2 bigger bodies now, but I'm very interested to see what the corresponding move. They don't have to make anything yet. If Jaden Reed doesn't play this week and Brenton Cox doesn't play this week, they don't need to make any corresponding move. By the way, they can release Bohanna at any time, like next week, if they decided to change their mind or whatever. But remember, Jordan Riley, the guy they brought off the Giants practice squad, is here for 3 weeks, pretty much no matter what, because of how the rules work for poaching guys off of the practice squad. So yeah, interesting. Savage was already released earlier this week, but he was claimed today. Is the other thing. Not sure why the Bills claimed Savage, but yeah, their defense definitely is a work in progress. But I don't think they're going to get the help that they want from Savage. That's for sure. I wouldn't expect Bohanna to play this week. That would be a freaking crazy turnaround to play this week. So I don't think he'll play against Chicago. But yeah, you never know in the NFL. NFL's crazy sometimes, but that's it. Even Jordan Riley's like a quick turnaround. Bohanna's he won't even get to Green Bay until tomorrow, would be my guess. So I'd be surprised if he plays this week. All right, maybe 1 or 2 more, and then we're going to get out of here. Hope you guys all have a safe and fun weekend, by the way. Gilbert Brown 2.0. I'll take that. Gilbert Brown or Howard Green. What was Howard Green's? Howard Green was 6'2", 340. What was Bohanna? 6'4", 360. So that's even a little bit bigger than Howard Green for sure. It's a big boy. Well, he can't wear Howard Green's jersey, and can't wear unless Stackhouse gets cut. But if Stackhouse gets cut, again, I don't know if that's going to happen. But number 93 would be available, so you could get the Gilbert look for sure. All right, friends. Thank you to the 366 of you that are in chat. Check out Luigi's Pizza. Get your sleeper picks in this week. Appreciate both of those for sponsoring today's show. I will be back tomorrow morning. I think what we're going to do for tomorrow is look at which players this season, based off of my grades and PFF grades, have improved the most and which ones have regressed the most, and kind of look at it a unique way that way. So we'll look at that probably tomorrow. Sunday is going to be pregame show, live postgame show. And then tomorrow afternoon, for members, it's already out there, but tomorrow afternoon will be Mike Wall's film breakdown of the Bears as well. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Next week is going to be a crazy week for me. The end of the week, I'm going to be in New York. So from Thursday through Sunday before the game, I'll be in New York, and then Sunday I'll be back. I don't think I'm going to be back in time for a pregame show, but I'll be back for the game and then a postgame show. So everything's going to be very crammed next week. And what you're probably going to see is things spread out a little bit more. So probably normal Monday live with Mike Wall, and then postgame show on Monday. Tuesday will likely be members Q&A, the Mike Wall regular pod, and I think I'm going to do probably get Mike Wall's film breakdown as well. And you might get grades for me if things go according to plan on Tuesday also, but we'll see about that. Actually, I can tell you, I have it right here. So I don't have, if everything goes according to plan, Monday will be the post-game show and Mike Wall live. Tuesday will be Mike Wall's vid, members Q&A, and the Mike Wall podcast. Wednesday would be Farrington show and happy hour. Thursday would be Justice Grades and Nagler. Friday would be Brettel. Saturday would be Carmen. And then Sunday would be pregame live. Well, pregame and probably live postgame show is what we're looking at. So just as a heads up for next week, it's going to be a crazy, crazy, insane week for me. But I hope you guys all have a great weekend. I will talk to you all very soon. Enjoy Packers Bears. I will be doing live pregame and postgame shows for this week. I think, yeah, I will do live pregame and postgame. Pregame show is going to be, it might be early, might be like 9 or 10 a.m. for the live pregame show. Postgame show will be as soon as I get home from the game. So we've got that cooking as well. But I will talk to you guys soon. Enjoy your weekend. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.